Hello. Welcome back to Align Vitality. I'm so glad you're with me on what is the third episode of our Weight of the Chair series. And if you've been with me since the first episode a couple of weeks ago, I want to say thank you. And if you're just joining us, welcome. This series is supposed to be an honest conversation about the inner life of a leader, the things that don't make it into many leadership books, the experiences that high-capacity leaders carry quietly, often privately, and often with a degree of shame that the experience really doesn't deserve. Our first episode was about the loneliness that lives inside leadership, even when you're never actually alone. Episode 2 was about the anxiety that comes with a leadership seat, what your nervous system is actually doing, and why it makes complete sense. And now today we're talking about what it feels like when you can't tell anyone those things that you carry privately as a leader, not because you have no one, not because the people around you don't care, but because the role itself, the authority, the responsibility, the information that you carry, the decisions being processed means that some of what you're holding simply cannot be shared, not yet. Not with the people who are most natural to share it with, maybe not ever. Whether that's a personnel decision and process, an organizational change that's not yet public, a conversation that you had in confidence that is weighing on you heavily, concern about someone that you lead, that you're holding alone, that's confidential. Maybe a fear about the direction of the organization that you can't voice without sending the wrong signal to your team. Maybe it's a moment of your own leadership uncertainty that you can't share with the people who are looking to you for certainty. That is the weight of today's episode. And I want to start with a confession that might sound familiar. There have been many seasons in my leadership, seasons that sometimes last weeks, sometimes months, where I was carrying something significant that I couldn't discuss with anyone in my immediate world. Not my team, because of their role in the situation, not my family, because of the confidentiality that was not mine to break, not my friends, because the complexity of the context would have required more explanation than was appropriate. And in those seasons, I feel like I did something that I now recognize as a very physiologically costly thing to do. I just performed okayness, just being okay. I showed up, I smiled, I led meetings and made decisions and held space for everyone else's questions and concerns, all while internally carrying things that had nowhere to go. And the weight of that performance of holding something heavy in one hand and a composed public face on the other is something that I wish more people talked about. Because I think a lot of leaders are doing it right now. And I think most of them believe that it's just simply the cost of leadership. But the weight of that is real. It deserves to be acknowledged and tended. And there are ways within the appropriate limits of your role to carry it in a way that does not quietly consume you. So let's talk about it. Do you want to recharge your energy, restore your mental clarity, and finally feel like yourself again? Well, you are in the right place. Welcome to Align Vitality, the podcast that offers faith and functional health strategies for high-achieving, health-conscious women in midlife who want to heal from chronic stress, body and spirit. I'm your host, Tanya Engesether, a certified functional health practitioner, Christian life coach, and fellow midlife woman who knows what it's like to look strong on the outside while struggling silently on the inside. Here, we get real about anxiety, brain fog, burnout, hormone shifts, and the hidden toll of chronic stress. And more importantly, we talk about the path to healing. Each week, you'll find practical strategies and faith-fueled encouragement to help you restore your God-given energy, calm your nervous system, and reclaim peace in this season of life. If you're ready to stop pushing through and start thriving in the abundant life you were created for, let's get after it. This is Align Vitality. There are several distinct categories of things that leaders carry that cannot be shared, and each one has its own particular flavor of difficulty. So first, there's the personnel decisions. This is probably the most common and often one of the most painful. You know something about someone on your team that they do not yet know about themselves. Maybe it's a performance issue that's being documented, or a role is going to be eliminated or restructured, a concern that's been escalating, a decision that's coming that will significantly affect someone's life. And you carry that. You carry that in meetings with the person, in team interactions, in daily professional life, performing a normalcy that's not entirely honest because the truth is not yet yours to tell. The cognitive and the emotional load of that kind of holding is significant because you're not just carrying information, you are managing the weight of someone else's future while maintaining a relationship with them in the present. That's not a small thing. And then there's the category of organizational uncertainty. Leadership often means knowing things that are in flux before the people you lead can know about them. Maybe strategic changes being evaluated, budget pressures being navigated, leadership transitions being considered, organizational restructuring in process. And in those seasons when the future is genuinely uncertain and the decisions have not yet been made, the leader often cannot say, I don't know what's coming. I'm uncertain about this too. I have the same questions you have, and I do not have the answers yet. Because saying that, as true as it is, can send the wrong signal to a team that is looking to you for steadiness. And so you hold the uncertainty in a way that looks like composure, which is its own particular kind of exhausting. Another category of holding things you can't yet share is that maybe the confidence that was placed in you. Someone trusted you with something. A colleague shared a concern. An employee came to you with something vulnerable, something personal. A peer in leadership told you something in confidence that has implications for the organization. And now you carry that, not as a secret exactly, but as a stewardship, something held very carefully because it was given to you very carefully. That kind of carrying has weight. Maybe not the weight of a burden exactly, but the weight of responsibility, of knowing something that shapes your understanding of a situation without being able to act on it or discuss it openly. Another category of carrying things you can't share is your own uncertainty and fear as a leader. This one's probably the most intimate, and I think the most universal for leaders who are honest with themselves. There are moments, sometimes very long seasons even, when you are genuinely uncertain whether you are up to what the role requires. When the decisions feel too large, when the complexity feels beyond your current capacity, when you lie awake wondering if you're the right person for this. And the almost universal experience of leaders is that this particular fear, the fear of your own inadequacy, is the one you're most likely to carry completely alone. Because the people who are looking to you for leadership are not the right audience for your deepest doubts about your ability to lead them. And so that one goes in the internal drawer too. And the drawer gets heavier and heavier. So what does all of this do to the body? I want to be clinically honest with you because the physiological cost of carrying things that you cannot say is real. It's measurable and it's worth understanding. Research in this area of emotional suppression, the deliberate inhibition of emotional expression, consistently shows that suppression does not reduce the emotional or physiological experience of what is being held. It actually amplifies the internal stress response while masking the external expression of it. So, in plain language, not saying the thing does not make the thing less heavy. It makes the body work harder to hold it. Every time you carry a significant weight, whether it's a difficult piece of information, a significant concern, a private fear, without having an appropriate outlet for processing it, your HPA axis is activated. Cortisol is released. The nervous system remains in a heightened state of activation. And the specific cost of suppression, of performing your okayness while holding something very heavy, is that it requires a sustained cognitive and emotional effort that compounds the stress load. There's a psychologist named James Pennebaker, who has spent decades researching the relationship between emotional expression and physical health. And he found that people who habitually suppress significant emotional experiences show measurably higher rates of illness, disrupted immune function, and chronic health conditions than those who have appropriate outlets for processing what they carry. Conversely, and this is where it gets interesting, the act of expressing or processing a significant emotional experience, even in a limited or private way, measurably reduces the physiological stress response. Now, not eliminating the situation, not resolving the weight, just giving it somewhere to go. This is the science behind what you probably already know intuitively, that saying it out loud, even to just one safe person, or in a journal or in prayer, makes the body sort of exhale in a way that holding it silently does not. And for leaders who are carrying things that cannot be shared broadly, who are operating within appropriate confidentiality, this doesn't mean that the answer is to break confidence. What it means is the answer is to find the appropriate boundaried outlets, the specific places where the weight can be set down, at least partially, at least temporarily, without violating the trust that was placed in you. We'll talk about what that looks like. But first, I want to spend a moment on something I think is the most important thing I'll say today. And I've been building toward this. I want to give it the space that it deserves. Because when I think about the specific loneliness of carrying things you cannot tell anyone, when I think about the weight of what has nowhere to go, there's a theological reality that I find more stabilizing than any strategy I could offer, and that is that God already knows. Not in the passive, abstract sense that He is omniscient and therefore aware, but in the active, relational, deeply personal sense that He sees exactly what you are carrying, every single layer of it. The part you could articulate if you had the right person to say it to, the part that is too complicated for words, the fear underneath the concern, the grief underneath the professionalism, the exhaustion underneath the competence. He sees all of it. Psalm 139, chapters 1 through 4 says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord." Before a word is on your tongue, He knows what you are carrying before you have language for it, before you have found the words, before you have identified the right person to say it to, before you have worked out what you even think about it. He already knows, and He's not alarmed by it. He's not overwhelmed by the complexity of what you're holding. He's not going to handle your confidential information carelessly. He's not going to misinterpret your fear or your uncertainty or your profound human limitation as disqualifying evidence. He already knows, and He is present with you in it. Psalm 62, verse 8 says, "Trust in Him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to Him, for your God is our refuge." Pour out your hearts. Not a sanitized summary, not the composed professional version, not the "I'm trusting God and remaining positive" version. Pour out your heart. The full weight of it. The raw version. The complicated, tangled, I don't even know where to start version. He is the one place where nothing needs to be held back, where the full weight can be set down, where confidentiality is safe because the one who receives it is the one who already knew it and who is sovereignly present in the situation you're carrying. That's not a small thing. For the leader who cannot tell anyone, God is the one who already knows. In the practice of bringing the full weight specifically to Him, not as a spiritual formality, but as a genuine, honest, pour it all out kind of conversation, is perhaps the most important practice in this entire series. I want to pause here and name something with care and honesty because I think it needs to be said. When the weight of what cannot be shared accumulates without adequate outlet, when the drawer gets fuller and nothing ever comes out, there are predictable consequences that I've watched unfold in the lives of very capable, faithful, deeply committed leaders. There's emotional numbing. That first thing to go is often the emotional range. When the internal experience becomes too heavy to hold consciously, the nervous system begins to dampen the signal. The result is a leader who's functioning, who is present, making decisions, engaging with her team, but who feels oddly flat, disconnected from her own experience, going through the motions of leadership without the fullness of feeling that once animated it. That's not laziness. This is a nervous system that has found a way to manage an unmanageable load by turning down the volume on everything. There's often displaced emotion. The emotion that has nowhere appropriate to go doesn't disappear. It finds other outlets, often not the ones you would choose. Maybe it's the disproportionate frustration over something small, the unexpected tears in a moment that doesn't quite warrant them, or the irritability with the people at home who had nothing to do with the weight being carried from work. Displaced emotion is information. It is telling you that something is not moving through, and what was contained is finding an exit. There are often physical symptoms. We've talked about this throughout this series and in other episodes, but it bears saying again here. The sustained suppression of significant emotional experience has physical consequences. Disrupted sleep, headaches, gut symptoms, muscle tension, particularly in the neck, the shoulders, and the jaw. Immune suppression, the chronic low-grade inflammation that drives so many of the symptoms that bring high-capacity women into functional health conversations. The body does keep score of everything that the mind is managing. And a body that's been keeping score of too much for too long will eventually communicate in the only language it has left, and that is in physical symptoms. Another symptom is compassion fatigue and cynicism. When a leader has been carrying too much for too long without adequate support, something begins to shift in the way that she relates to the work and the people in it. The genuine care that brought her into leadership begins to feel like a liability. The empathy that once came naturally begins to cost more than she has to spend. The mission that once animated her becomes something she's managing rather than something she is living. This is not a character failure. This is a predictable consequence of sustained carrying without adequate release. And it deserves to be treated not with more effort, not with more discipline, but with the recognition that the system has been running above capacity for too long and that something has to change. So let's talk about what I actually do and what I would encourage you to consider doing when what I'm carrying has nowhere to go. Now, I want to be clear. The goal here is not to find ways around appropriate confidentiality. The goal is to find legitimate, appropriately boundaried, ethical outlets for processing what you're holding so that the weight doesn't become a physiological and an emotional crisis. One strategy is to find a peer mentor or a coach who is outside of your organization if possible, but certainly outside of your team. A peer leader, a leadership coach, or a mentor who is completely outside your organizational context can offer something that almost no one in your immediate world can, and that is the combination of genuine understanding of the leadership experience and no entanglement in the specific situation that you're navigating. You can say, I'm carrying something I can't share in detail. I need help processing what it is doing to me without giving you the particulars. And a good coach or peer mentor can work with that. They can hold the space for the weight without needing the full content. They can help you find language for your own experience without requiring you to breach the confidence that you're keeping. That relationship is worth investing in, worth pursuing intentionally, worth treating as a non-negotiable part of your leadership infrastructure rather than a luxury you will get to eventually. Another option is journaling, not as a creative exercise or a productivity strategy, but as a physiological practice. Again, this researcher, James Pennebaker, who I referenced earlier, found that expressive writing about significant emotional experiences produces measurable health benefits. Those include improved immune function, reduced doctor visits, lower physiological stress markers. Not because writing solves the problem, but because giving the experience an outlet, even a private written one, allows the body to release what it's been holding. So for leaders carrying things that they cannot say out loud, journaling can be a legitimate, confidential, physiologically beneficial outlet for that weight. You can do something called a full weight journal entry. Write everything, the complicated parts, the fear underneath, the uncertainty that you can't show at work, the things you don't even have language for yet. Write toward them or write whatever pops into your mind until you find all of the words, and then close the journal and give it to God in prayer. Say, I've said everything here that I cannot say anywhere else. It's all yours now. You already knew it. I'm choosing to trust you with what I cannot carry. It's a physical demonstration of a spiritual faithfulness, and it works. There's things to do that are physical, having an actual somatic discharge, moving what the body is holding. Because the weight of what cannot be shared lives in your body, not just in your mind, and the body needs a body-based outlet as well as a cognitive or verbal one. So that's why movement, particularly walking, particularly in nature, is one of my most consistent practices in heavy seasons. It's literally mental therapy for me and physical therapy for me. Not because it solves the problem, but because it completes that neurological stress cycle. It gives the body a physical outlet for the activation that's been building and allows the nervous system to begin to regulate and return to normal functional levels. In seasons when I'm carrying something heavy, I try to protect my walking practice as fiercely as any other meeting or professional commitment because I know that the clarity, the regulation, and the emotional digestion that happens in those 45 minutes to an hour sometimes is not optional. That is how I stay functional. Then there's therapeutic relationships. There are seasons of leadership, seasons when the weight of what's being carried is genuinely more than pure conversation, journaling, or movement can address. When working with a therapist might be the most responsible, most professional, most faithful thing you can do. Not because something's wrong with you, because something is heavy. And heavy things sometimes require more than we can provide for ourselves. So considering professional therapy is not off limits. A therapist who works with leaders, who understands the confidentiality constraints and can work within them, can help you process the weight of what you're carrying without requiring you to breach the trust that's been placed in you. It's not weakness to seek out that professional option. It's really just wisdom, knowing what's beyond your scope to be able to deal with. And I think our leadership culture's discomfort with acknowledging this, often in Christian leadership context, has cost a lot of good leaders more than it should have. And finally, and this builds on what I said in the faith section, the practice of bringing what you cannot say to anyone to God in very full, specific, unedited prayer is essential. Not formal, structured prayer, not a summarized request. A legitimate conversation where you say, God, I'm going to tell you everything, all of it. The parts that are complicated and the parts that are my fault and the parts that I'm ashamed of and the parts I don't understand and the parts I'm afraid of. You already know all of it, but I need to say it. I need it to go somewhere, so here it is. And then you say it out loud. If you don't want to say it out loud, you can write it. If you don't want to say it in the house, say it in the car, in the shower, on the walk, anywhere that gives you the privacy to be completely unedited. That practice of specific, full, unedited prayer that treats God as the genuinely present, genuinely knowing, genuinely trustworthy recipient of everything you cannot say elsewhere is the most consistent, powerful thing in my personal toolkit. It does what nothing else can. It allows you to be fully known. Not professionally known, not publicly known, not known in the edited, composed, leader in the chair version, truly known. And being known, truly, fully, is one of the most profound nervous system regulating experiences available to all of us. I want to close the content portion of today's episode with something that I think doesn't get said enough. There is a version of carrying things alone that is honorable. It is the caring that comes with appropriate confidentiality, with the wise stewardship of information that was entrusted to you, with the leadership responsibility of holding complexity while others need steadiness. That carrying is part of the leadership chair, and it is worth doing well. And there is another version of carrying things alone that is not honorable. It is the carrying that comes from pride, from the unwillingness to acknowledge that the weight has become more than one person should hold, from the belief that needing support is a leadership failure, from the cultural messaging in healthcare, in ministry, in corporate leadership, in Christian communities that the strong ones do not ask for help. That version of carrying alone is not noble. It's costly, and it costs not just you. It does cost the people you lead, the organization you serve, and probably most importantly, the family that you go home to. Knowing the difference between the two and being honest with yourself about which one you're in is one of the most important acts of self-awareness in leadership. If you are in a season right now where the drawer has gotten too full, where the weight has been accumulating longer than it should have without adequate outlet, I want to say to you gently but directly, it's time to find support. Not instead of God, but alongside Him. Not instead of the confidentiality the role requires, but within it. You don't have to carry this alone. And the version of you that gets proper support, that tends to the weight appropriately is a better leader, a more present leader, a more regulated, more empathetic, more genuinely available leader for yourself, for your team, for the mission you're in the chair to serve. Let's close together in a prayer. God, we come to you today carrying things that have nowhere else to go, decisions that are not yet ours to share, concerns we're holding alone, fears about our own inadequacy that we've not said out loud to anyone, the weight of being the one who is supposed to know when what we actually know most clearly is how much we don't know. We bring it all to you now, not the composed version, not the professional, polished version, not the version that makes us look like we have it all together, the real version, the full weight. You already know it, Lord. You knew it before we talked, before we walked into this prayer. You have been present with us in every meeting, every sleepless night, every moment of performing, that we're okay while holding something heavy, and you're not overwhelmed by any of it. Receive what we're carrying today. Give us the wisdom to find legitimate outlets for the weight, the right people, the right practices, the courage to ask for help when the load exceeds what we were designed to carry. And remind us that being fully known by you is not just a spiritual comfort, it is the safest place we have ever been. Thank you for the opportunity to sit in this heavy chair and for being in it with us. In Jesus' name, amen. My friends, the weight of what you cannot say is real, and you're not meant to carry it indefinitely without an outlet. Find the places where the weight can go within the limits of your role, within the bounds of your integrity. Maybe it's a coach, a journal, a walk, a therapist, and above everything else, the God who already knows every word before it's on your tongue. You are not alone in what you're carrying, even when it feels that way. Until next time, lead well, live well, and be well. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. If today's episode encouraged or blessed you, would you please take a minute to leave a rating and written review on Apple Podcasts? It means the world to me, and it helps more women like you discover this message of hope and healing. If you're ready to take the next step in your functional health journey, join my interest list at alignvitalityhealth.com. And remember, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to be medical advice, nor is it intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health. Until next time, I'm Tanya Engesether, reminding you that healing is possible and your best season is still ahead.